Hey everybody, happy Monday. I cannot wait to hear all about your wonderful spring break highlights when I see you all tomorrow. But for right now, we are going to begin section 6.1, Properties of Exponents, and our focus today is going to be on examples 1 and 2. So before we get started, I want to just do a brief review of powers. And you can see right here that I actually wrote a power. My power is x to the n. And then I labeled each of these pieces. X is referred to as the base, and n is referred to as the exponent. When you have a situation where you have the base and the exponent together, that is referred to as a power. So the x is called the base, the n is called the exponent, and together x to the n is your power. So again, that's just a little bit of a review from earlier in the school year. So in this section, we're actually going to spend a few days on this section. I think if I remember correctly, we are going to spend 3 days on this section. Let me double check real quick, you guys. Oops, hold on, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4 days. 4 days on this section. So today we're going to be looking at, like I said, just examples 1 and 2. We're going to kind of baby step this section along the way. There's several properties in here, and we're going to just work on a couple of them at a time. So today our focus is going to be on the zero exponent property. Okay, and the zero exponent property states that anything to the zero, so we can have the base of a, as long as a is not 0. So that's key. This cannot be 0. So we have a base raised to a 0 exponent, that is going to equal 1. So anything to the 0 is 1. And here's several examples of that. 5 to the 0. So here my base is 5. My exponent is 0. 5 to the 0 is 1. Here, my base is x. My exponent is 0. So x to the 0 is 1. Here, my base is -3. My exponent is 0. So -3 to the 0 is 1. Here, my base is 4.5 and my exponent is 0. So 4.5 to the 0 is 1. Here, my base is a -1/3. My exponent is 0, so -1/3 to the 0 is 1. So you can see that our zero exponent property is basically telling us that anytime we have that 0 exponent, you can see that each one of these have an exponent of 0, then our output or our answer is going to be that it equals 1. Here it equaled 1, equaled 1, equaled 1, equaled 1, equaled 1. We're also going to take a look at the negative exponent property in this section. So here I have a base that is being raised to a negative exponent. And in order to get rid of that negative exponent, I need to take this out of the numerator or the top, and I need to move it to the bottom of my fraction. So it will become 1 over a to the n. And when I move it from the numerator to the denominator, so when I move it from the top to the bottom, that negative exponent changes to a positive. And again, you can see here that a, our base, cannot be equal to 0. Or we could have a situation where our negative exponent is in the denominator or the bottom of our fraction to begin with. And if that were to happen, then we would move this from the bottom to the top. We would move it from the denominator to the numerator. We would move it from the bottom to the top. And when we move that negative exponent from the bottom to the top, you can clearly see here that it becomes positive. And just general rule of thumb, there should never be negative exponents in your final answer. So that's basically what that negative exponent property states. There should never be negative exponents in your final answer. All right, so let's go ahead and take a peek at a few examples of how to apply these properties to some expressions. So here I have 2.5 to the 0. This is our 0 exponent property. Anything to the 0, according to this property, is going to equal 1. So 2.5 to the 0 is going to be 1. Here we have a base of -3 and an exponent of -2. So this is going to be our negative exponent property. So right now we can see that our negative exponent is in our numerator, or the top of our fraction. And so if it's in the top, then we're gonna move it from the top to the bottom. And when we make that move, that exponent will become positive. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch this from the top to the bottom. And when I do that, that exponent will become positive. And then basically -3 squared is a -3 times a -3. So a couple of ways I can do that on my calculator. I can type in a -3 squared, and that's going to give me 9. Or I know that -3 squared is the same thing as -3 times -3, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So this will actually simplify into 1/9, ladies and gentlemen. All right, here we've got 4 to the -3. So again, you can see we've got that negative exponent property, and we don't want negative exponents. So I'm going to quickly make this a fraction by putting it over 1. So you can see that that negative exponent is in our numerator, or it is in the top of our fraction. So in order to change that negative to a positive, I need to basically take this out of the top and move it to the bottom of my fraction. And when I do that, my negative exponent becomes a positive. So that's going to become a +3. And then I can simplify this a little bit further, because I can use my calculator to actually figure out what is 4 to the 3rd. So I can do 4 to the, so I can use this little caret or arrow up button here to get an exponent of 3. So 4 to the 3rd is going to give me 64. Or I know that 4 to the 3rd is the same thing as 4 times 4 times 4. 4 to the 3rd is the same thing as taking 4 and multiplying it by itself 3 times. So that will also give me 64. So this is really 1/64. Okay. And then one more, simplifying these expressions. So in this problem, we have a combination of our 0 exponent property, and we have a combination of our negative exponent property here. So we know that anything to the 0 is 1. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that first. Anything to the 0 is 1. So this is going to become 1/2 to the -3rd, because anything to the 0 is 1. All right, so we've taken care of that 0 exponent by applying the 0 exponent property to get 1. Now we need to take care of this negative exponent. And so if we have a negative exponent in the bottom of our fraction, all we need to do is move it to the top. And when we do that, it will become a positive. So I'm going to have a fraction here. I'm going to take my 2 to the -3 and I'm going to move it to the top. And when I do that, my -3 will become a +3. So I'm going to have 2 to the 3 over 1. And 2 to the 3, I can actually do that on my calculator. 2 using this little caret or arrow up button to the third is going to give me 8. Or I can realize that 2 to the third is the same thing as 2 times 2 times 2. Taking 2 and multiplying it by itself 3 times. That will also give me 8. So our answer here is going to become 8 over 1. And anything divided by 1 is itself. So this is just going to have an answer of 8. All right, and then coming down here, simplify the expression, write your answer using only positive exponents. So that means we should not have any negative exponents in our final answer. And I do have a little hint over here. Don't touch positive exponents. So if you have a positive exponent in our problem, which I can see one right here, this is already an exponent of positive 2, I am not going to touch that. Do not touch your positive exponents. So I'm going to go ahead and apply what we know. So I can see here that I've got a 0 exponent property, and I know that anything to the 0 is 1. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that first. So this is going to equal 1 times x squared over y to the negative second. And 1 times anything is itself. So this is really just going to be x squared divided by y to the negative second. And we know from our negative exponent property that we can't have negative exponents. So since this negative exponent is in the denominator or the bottom of our fraction, we need to move it to the top. And when we do that, that negative exponent will change to a positive. So our x squared is not moving, but our y to the negative second is going to come to the top. And when it comes to the top, that negative is going to become a positive. So our final answer here for $1,000,000 math dollars is x squared times y squared. So part A has a final answer of x squared times y squared. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at part B. I don't see any positive exponents here. So that means basically everything is going to change. I've got a negative exponent here. I've got a negative exponent here. Both of those things are going to have to move. And I've got y to the 0. So I have a 0 exponent property. So I need to take care of all of that. So I'm actually going to start with my 0 exponent because it's easy. So I'm going to keep my 3 to the negative second times x to the negative fifth, but my y to the 0 is going to become 1 because anything to the 0 is 1. All right, so we've applied the 0 exponent property. That's how we got positive 1 here. So now we need to take care of these negative exponents. So they are currently in the top of our fraction or the numerator. So we need to move them from the top to the bottom. So when I do that, I'm going to have 1 in the top, and then everything is basically going to move to the bottom. I'm going to have 1 times 3 to the second, but notice that that negative 2 is becoming a positive 2. That is what my negative exponent property tells me to do. And that is getting multiplied by x to the fifth. Same thing. Notice that negative exponent now becomes a positive. When we take these out of the top and we move them to the bottom, our exponents become positive. All right, and 1 times anything is itself. So this is really going to be 1 over 3 squared times x to the fifth, because again, 1 times anything is itself. I'm sorry, 1 times anything is itself. Now, I do have one other piece that I can simplify here. I can simplify the 3 squared. I can simplify the 3 squared. 3 squared is the same thing as 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. So this will really become 1 over 9 times x to the 5th. And that will be our final answer for $1 million math. So our final answer for $1 million math is 1 over 9 times x to the 5th. And some of you might be wondering, well, how did she get that 9? That's because 3 squared. 3 squared is 3 times 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. You do have homework this evening in Big Ideas, all right? So please hop over to Big Ideas and work on that homework. Whatever you don't finish in class is homework, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, everybody.